On a misty morning in a quiet town, the arrival of a stranger stirs old secrets. At Willow Creek, nothing is quite as peaceful as it seems, and Detective Eleanor Hart knows that some whispers are meant to be heard. The fog rolled in thick across Willow Creek, curling around the old Victorian homes like a secret in search of years. Eleanor Hart's sedan cut through the gray, tires whispering on the wet pavement. She parked in front of the Willow Inn, its paint faded but proud, a sign of years gone by. Inside, the inn smelled of polished wood and fresh coffee. Behind the front desk, Mrs. Marguerite Crane, the proprietor, polished her spectacles with a linen handkerchief. "Detective Hart, welcome," she said, her voice calm but not without curiosity. "I wasn't expecting you so early." Eleanor gave a polite nod. "Morning, Mrs. Crane. I'm here about the incident at the lake last night." Mrs. Crane's eyes flickered toward the window. The lake beyond the inn shimmered through the fog, serene and cold. "Yes, the boys found him there. Strange, isn't it? Never thought Willow Creek would see something like this." Eleanor stepped inside the lobby, her gaze sweeping over the small town scene. A fire crackled in the hearth, and a grandfather clock ticked steadily, a comforting rhythm, if one ignored the tension in the room. "Tell me everything you know," Eleanor said, settling into the chair. Mrs. Crane leaned on the desk. "The body was discovered by young Thomas and his friend, playing near the dock. They say they saw nothing unusual until they found him. No signs of a struggle. Just him." Eleanor nodded. "The victim, local?" "Yes. Gregory Ames. Lives in the old house on the hill with his aunt. Quiet man, keeps to himself mostly." Eleanor made a note. Quiet men often had the most to hide. "And the family? Any history of unusual activity?" Mrs. Crane hesitated. "Ames has been peculiar for years. Kept odd hours. People say he spoke to no one. Some even whispered about his late nights at the lake." Eleanor leaned back, her mind racing. A solitary man, an isolated lake, whispers of nocturnal activity. It was classic, in a way. A mystery wrapped in a veneer of quiet normality. Before she could ask more, the door swung open. A young man, probably in his 20s, entered, dripping wet. "Detective Hart?" he said, voice shaking. I found something else. Near the dock." Eleanor rose, her pulse quickening. "Show me." Outside, the fog clung to them as Eleanor followed the young man. At the far edge of the dock, partially hidden in reeds, lay a small leather-bound journal. Eleanor knelt carefully, brushing the damp cover with gloved fingers. "This belonged to Ames," the young man said, voice trembling. Eleanor opened the journal slowly. The pages were filled with neat, precise handwriting, but the entries were strange. References to secret meetings, unmarked boats on the lake, and a warning about those who watch in silence. Her mind raced. Someone had been tracking Ames, or perhaps Ames had been tracking someone. And now, that knowledge had come to light, too late to save him, but just in time to reveal the first thread of the mystery. Eleanor closed the journal, her eyes sweeping the misty water. "Someone wanted him gone," she whispered. "But the real question is, who, and why?" Secrets rarely stay buried in Willow Creek. As Detective Eleanor Hart examines the journal, a mysterious visitor arrives at the inn. Someone who knows more than they're willing to say. The fog thickened as Eleanor Hart returned to the Willow Inn, the journal tucked carefully under her arm. The inn seemed smaller now, its cozy interior shadowed by the weight of the discovery. Mrs. Crane was watching her, concern knitting her brow. "You found something, didn't you?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. Ames kept a journal. Strange entries, cryptic warnings. Someone was following him, or perhaps he was tracking them. Either way, it's a thread worth pulling." Before Mrs. Crane could respond, the bell above the door jingled. Eleanor turned. A man stood in the doorway, tall, with a dark overcoat, and eyes that didn't quite meet hers. "Detective Hart?" he asked, his voice calm but carrying a subtle tension. "That's me," Eleanor replied, studying him. "And you are?" "My name is Samuel Drayton. I knew Gregory Ames." He glanced toward the foggy lake, then back at Eleanor. "He trusted me. I think he wanted someone to find this." He gestured to the journal. Eleanor held it up. "You're saying Ames left this for someone to read?" Drayton nodded. "Yes. He feared he was being watched. Someone dangerous. He mentioned strange lights on the lake at night, unmarked boats, voices in the fog. I didn't take him seriously at first, until it was too late." Eleanor's brow furrowed. Did Ames mention who might want to harm him? Drayden hesitated, fingers clenching the brim of his hat. He hinted at a visitor from out of town. Someone who had dealings in Willow Creek, who didn't want the past uncovered. Eleanor's mind raced. An outsider, possibly familiar with Ames' secretive activities, might have been lurking in the mist. She glanced toward the window. The fog was almost impenetrable, curling around the lake like a living thing. If this visitor is still around, they could be watching right now, she said. Drayden swallowed. That's why I came. Ames, he wanted someone he trusted to continue the search. I'm not enough. I didn't act fast enough to protect him. Eleanor placed a reassuring hand on the journal. We'll be careful, but we need more information about these visitors and what Ames uncovered. The journal may hold clues we haven't noticed yet. As they spoke, Mrs. Crane approached quietly. Detective, there's someone asking about the inn. A woman, tall, with a wide hat. She wouldn't give her name, but she seemed insistent. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Can you show me where she went? Mrs. Crane pointed toward the back of the inn, where the hallway led to the guest rooms. Eleanor and Drayden moved silently, the air thick with fog that had seeped inside. The hallway felt unusually cold, almost as if the house itself held its breath. At the end of the corridor, a shadow disappeared into a room. Eleanor paused. She knocked softly. Hello? She called. No answer. She pushed the door open slowly. Inside, the room was empty, except for a small, folded note on the desk. Eleanor picked it up. The handwriting was deliberate, careful. You are looking where you should not. Stop, or the lake will keep its secrets forever. Drayden's face paled. She knows you're investigating. Eleanor's lips pressed together. And she wants to intimidate us. Whoever she is, she's dangerous and close by. Eleanor tucked the note into her coat, eyes scanning the foggy window. Someone is watching us, she whispered. And this time, I think they're waiting for the right moment to strike. Fog and whispers cloak Willow Creek as Detective Hart begins to uncover what Gregory Ames was hiding. Beneath the still surface of the lake, the town's darkest secrets may be waiting to rise. The mist outside had thickened to a near-white haze, the lake reduced to a gray mirror, disturbed only by the occasional ripple of a fish or a stray leaf. Eleanor Hart and Samuel Drayden stood at the water's edge, the journal heavy in her hands. You mentioned lights on the lake, Eleanor said, voice low. Tell me everything. Drayden glanced over his shoulder, then lowered his voice. Ames said he saw them, small lanterns, floating near the middle of the lake at night. Boats with no markings, people moving silently. He tried to follow them once, but the fog swallowed the craft before he could see who was aboard. Eleanor studied the lake. So Ames kept this to himself? Drayden nodded. Mostly, but he started leaving clues. Warnings in his journal, messages for someone to find if something happened to him. Eleanor flipped through the pages. Entries described meetings by the lake, mentions of deaths, and repeated warnings. They are patient. They will wait. Do not trust the quiet. Her gaze drifted over the water. Something glimmered faintly near the far shore, just for a moment, like a lantern reflected in the mist. She squinted. Did he ever get close enough to see who they were? Drayden shook his head. No, he said he couldn't. They were careful. Too careful. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. And the journal? Any clues about what they wanted? Drayden swallowed. Ames hinted at old town secrets, financial dealings, disputes over land, things buried for decades. He never named names, but he suspected someone in the town had reasons to keep it quiet. The detective exhaled. Someone was still guarding those secrets, someone willing to threaten or perhaps even kill. Ames had been clever, leaving the journal to be found, but cleverness could only go so far. Then we need to see the lake tonight, Eleanor said firmly. If Ames was trying to track them, the lake may still hold evidence. Drayden hesitated. It's dangerous. Whoever's out there, they won't welcome intruders. Eleanor glanced at him, eyes steely. That's why we'll be careful. But I need to know what he was protecting. As night fell, the lake took on a sinister beauty. Lanterns flickered in the distance, not moving with the current, stationary yet oddly alive. Eleanor and Drayden rowed slowly in a small boat borrowed from the inn, every splash echoing in the still night. The closer they approached, the clearer the lights became, revealing wooden crates floating in the shallow waters, tied together with rope. Something heavy, metallic perhaps, pressed against the bottom. Eleanor's pulse quickened. What do you think Ames wanted us to find? Drayden swallowed. Something he buried, or someone else did. He wanted it hidden, but he thought it might save him. Eleanor anchored the boat and shone a lantern over the crates. On the top, a piece of folded paper floated, waterlogged but legible. She picked it up, reading aloud. If you seek the truth, be ready. Some secrets are worth more than life itself. A sudden splash startled them. Eleanor swung the lantern. A shadow moved along the far bank. Eleanor gripped the journal tightly. We're not alone, she whispered. And someone is watching, waiting for us to make the first mistake. Shadows move across the misty lake, and Detective Hart realizes the quiet town of Willow Creek is far from safe. A stranger has appeared, and their presence may hold the key to Gregory Ames' final secret. Eleanor Hart tightened her grip on the oar, her lantern casting a thin beam across the water. The splash on the far shore repeated, deliberate, as if announcing a presence that had been hiding in the fog. Someone's there, she whispered to Drayton. He leaned forward, squinting. Could it be one of the locals? Or Ames' visitor? The figure finally emerged from the mist. A woman, tall, dressed in a dark coat, a wide hat obscuring her face. She moved with measured steps, each one deliberate, almost ceremonial. Eleanor's pulse quickened. Stay calm. Let's not make any sudden moves. Drayton nodded, though his hands shook. The woman stopped at the water's edge and raised her head. For a moment, the lantern light caught her face, sharp features, cold eyes, and an expression that suggested she had been expecting them. Detective Hart, she said, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. I wondered when you'd arrive. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. Do I know you? The woman smiled faintly. You might, in time. But for now, consider me a messenger of truths you are not yet ready to accept. Drayton stepped forward. Messenger? What truths? What happened to Ames? The woman's eyes flicked toward the floating crates. He discovered what should have stayed hidden. And now, the same danger that caught him may reach you if you are not careful. Eleanor's instincts screamed at her. The woman was hiding something, something vital. Why warn me? Why not stay in the shadows? The stranger's gaze hardened. Because the journal isn't enough. Ames tried to protect it, but some secrets need a living witness. Someone who can act before the lake claims more lives. Eleanor looked at the crates, then back at the woman. What's in them? The stranger's lips tightened. Evidence. Proof of debts, betrayals, and long-forgotten deals. The kind of things that can destroy reputations or lives. You've seen the journal. Now, you must decide whether to follow the path he left for you or step back. Drayton swallowed hard. Step back? We can't. If Ames trusted us with this, we must finish what he started. The woman's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. Then you must be cautious. Someone is watching. Someone who will not hesitate to act if you uncover too much. Eleanor's mind raced. The stranger could be an ally, or another layer of the trap. Every word was measured, every gesture deliberate. The woman turned, stepping back into the mist. Remember, the lake whispers only to those who listen carefully. But beware, it keeps some secrets for good reason. Before Eleanor could respond, she had vanished, leaving only the fog and the gentle lapping of water against the boat. Drayton exhaled shakily. Who was that? Eleanor shook her head. I don't know yet, but I do know one thing. Ames' death was not random, and someone on this shore has been orchestrating events for a long time. We're closer than ever, but also more vulnerable than ever. The crates bobbed quietly, waiting in the water. Eleanor knew the journal, the notes, and now the stranger's warning were all pieces of the same puzzle. Someone had engineered Ames' death, and the lake had kept it secret, until now. As they rowed back toward the inn, Eleanor glanced once more at the far shore. A figure watched them from the trees, silent, patient, and determined. They're still out there, she whispered. And they're not done with us yet. In Willow Creek, every whispered secret has a shadow. As Detective Hart returns to the inn, a new clue appears. A hidden ledger that may finally reveal who is willing to kill to keep the town's past buried. The inn felt quieter than before, though Eleanor Hart knew better than to trust appearances. Willow Creek had a calm, almost sleepy surface, the kind that hid currents beneath. She and Samuel Drayton carried the journal back into the study, placing it carefully on the desk. Mrs. Crane was waiting, her hands clasped. Detective, I kept your room ready for the night. You look exhausted. Eleanor offered a faint smile. Sleep will wait. There's too much to uncover. Drayton pointed toward the fireplace. Ames sometimes hid documents there. Among the bricks. Have you checked? Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Not yet. Let's see if he left more than just words. Carefully, she examined the hearth. Loose bricks lined the back wall, an oddity that most visitors would overlook. Eleanor slid one aside. Behind it lay a small, rusted metal box. She pulled it free, the lock stubborn but weak with age. Inside, a neatly folded ledger rested, yellowed with time yet meticulously preserved. Drayden leaned over. A ledger? Ames wrote that in here? Eleanor opened it. The pages were filled with names, dates, and figures, sums of money, land deeds, and property exchanges that traced back decades. Some entries were mundane, but others hinted at something darker. Payments labeled vaguely, for services rendered. Notes like, keep quiet, and, must be discreet. She whispered, this isn't just a record, it's a map of influence. Whoever controlled these entries controlled the town, or at least thought they did. Drayden frowned. Could these transactions explain Ames' fear? Eleanor nodded slowly. Yes. Ames stumbled onto these dealings. He knew too much, and someone decided knowledge was dangerous. She flipped further. One name stood out, repeated across multiple pages. Lydia Brandt, a woman who had moved quietly to Willow Creek only a few years ago. The ledger showed her involvement in several large, anonymous transactions, the kind that could ruin families if exposed. Drayden's voice was low. Could she be the one watching him? The one our stranger on the shore warned us about? Eleanor considered it. Possibly. Ames' entries mention a visitor from the outside. If Lydia is tied to the ledger, she may have had motive to silence him. And now, she's watching us. A sudden noise from the inn's hallway startled them. A door creaked, footsteps barely audible on the carpet. Eleanor moved instinctively, lantern in hand, signaling Drayden to follow. The hall was empty. Only a cold draft lingered, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and something metallic. Eleanor's eyes scanned the shadows, noting how easily someone could slip in and out unnoticed. She returned to the ledger. Someone is trying to protect this, she murmured. They know we have the journal. They know we're looking at the ledger. And they are ready to intervene. Drayden swallowed. Then what do? We can't confront them yet, not without proof. Eleanor tapped the ledger thoughtfully. Proof will come. We just have to follow the threads. Someone underestimated Ames, and now, they're underestimating us. But we must be careful. The next move will tell us everything. As the night deepened, Eleanor reviewed every entry, every name, and every cryptic note. The inn was quiet again, but she knew the shadows outside were patient. Someone was waiting for them to make a mistake. A knock at the inn's front door echoed sharply. Eleanor froze, knowing that whoever was there had information, or danger. Who could that be at this hour? She whispered, reaching for the door. A knock at midnight can mean danger or revelation. Detective Hart prepares for the unknown, as someone arrives at the Willow Inn with answers, or perhaps with a threat she cannot ignore. The knock echoed through the empty halls of the Willow Inn, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the quiet hum of the night. Eleanor Hart exchanged a glance with Samuel Drayden. Stay behind me, she whispered, hand brushing the revolver in her coat pocket. Mrs. Crane appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. Detective, I wasn't expecting anyone. It's so late. Eleanor nodded. I know, but someone has come. Let's see who it is. She opened the door slowly. Standing in the dim light of the porch was a man in a dark overcoat, collar pulled high against the mist. His face was partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. He lifted it as Eleanor stepped closer. Detective Hart, he said, voice calm but urgent. I mean you no harm. My name is Harris Cole. I knew Gregory Ames. I have information you'll need, about the ledger, and about Willow Creek's delicate past. Eleanor studied him carefully. And why come now? Why not before? Cole's eyes flickered toward the fog-laden street. Because Ames trusted you to discover the truth. He prepared the journal and the ledger for someone like you. But some dangers, some people, they are still active. Drayden's eyebrows rose. You mean, someone might be following us? Cole nodded gravely. Exactly. Ames suspected threats from someone powerful, who wanted certain matters kept secret. I've been watching, waiting for the right time to approach. Eleanor gestured for him to step inside. Tell us everything, and be quick. The fog outside hides more than the night air. Cole settled into a chair, glancing at the ledger. Ames uncovered illegal dealings, yes. But more than money, land acquisitions, property disputes, and a series of secret transactions that could ruin influential people in town. Lydia Brandt, as you discovered, is only part of the story. There's another player, someone Ames referred to only as the Shadow. Eleanor leaned forward. The Shadow? Who is that? Cole shook his head. I don't know. He never met Ames in person, only communicated through intermediaries. But he was the one pulling strings behind the ledger, orchestrating threats, and ultimately, Ames' death. A sudden chill swept through the room. Eleanor glanced at Drayton. So Ames knew he was in danger. And whoever this Shadow is, they're still watching us tonight. Cole nodded. Yes, and that is why I came. Ames' journal hinted at a final hiding place. A location where key documents could be concealed, away from prying eyes. If we can find it, we may finally expose the entire operation. Eleanor's mind raced. Do you know where? Cole hesitated. I have an idea, but it's risky. It involves the old boathouse on the north side of the lake. If anyone approaches, they'll assume we are looking elsewhere, and the Shadow may strike. Drayton swallowed hard. We can't wait. If we delay, we may lose the chance to secure the evidence, and someone else may die. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Then we move tonight. Carefully, quietly, and we make sure we're prepared for whatever, or whoever, we find waiting. The three of them gathered their coats, lanterns, and the journal. Outside, the fog pressed against the inn like a living wall. Every rustle of leaves, every ripple across the lake seemed exaggerated, amplified by the tense anticipation. As they stepped into the mist, Eleanor glanced back at the inn. From a shadowed window, a figure watched silently, patient, silent, and waiting for them to make the first move. Someone is following us, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the lapping water. And I fear tonight, the truth will come at a cost. Under the cover of fog and midnight, Detective Hart and her companions reach the old boathouse. Every creek and shadow seems alive, and within its walls lies the evidence that could finally unravel Willow Creek's darkest secrets. The fog pressed thick around them as Eleanor Hart, Samuel Drayton, and Harris Cole rowed silently toward the north shore of the lake. The boathouse loomed like a dark silhouette, weathered and abandoned, its roof sagging with decades of neglect. Are you sure this is the place? Drayton whispered. Cole nodded. Ames wrote that the key evidence would be stored somewhere obvious to the observant, but hidden from casual eyes. The boathouse fits perfectly. Eleanor's eyes scanned the surroundings, lantern held high. The wooden dock creaked underfoot as they approached the entrance. She felt the weight of the journal in her bag, the ledger tucked safely beneath her coat. Whoever Ames had been running from might have anticipated someone following these clues. They stepped inside. Dust hung thick in the air, stirred by their movements. Rows of abandoned boats lined the walls, their hulls splintered and cracked. The smell of mildew and wet wood filled the small space. Eleanor moved toward the back. Something glimmered beneath a pile of old tarps. She pulled them aside, revealing a metal trunk, small but heavy, with rust along its edges. This is it, Cole said, voice low. The final cache. Eleanor examined the lock. It was old but functional. With careful hands, she lifted the latch. Inside, documents, letters, and bundles of receipts rested neatly. The papers were fragile but readable, chronicling the same series of secret transactions Ames had hinted at, land deals, money transfers, and coded instructions. She flipped through the documents. This is more than evidence. This is a map of power and fear in Willow Creek, decades in the making. Drayton's voice was tense. And if someone gets wind of this, they'll stop at nothing to protect it. Eleanor nodded. Exactly. Ames left clues because he trusted us, but he also knew the danger. These papers are the proof we need, but we must be careful how we use them. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked behind them. Eleanor's heart jumped. She swung the lantern toward the sound. A shadow moved along the wall. A figure stepped forward, tall, narrow, and impossibly quiet. The wide-brimmed hat revealed only a sliver of face. The shadow, Eleanor whispered. The figure raised a gloved hand slowly. I see you found my hiding place. Eleanor's hand moved to her revolver. Who are you? Why Ames? Why threaten him? The shadow's lips curled into a faint smile. I protected this town's secrets longer than you've been alive. Ames got too close, too curious. And now, you trespass where you shouldn't. Cole stepped forward. We only want the truth. The figure laughed softly, low and chilling. The truth comes at a price. And in Willow Creek, curiosity has consequences. Eleanor's mind raced. The shadow's presence explained the threats, the cryptic warnings, even the mysterious lights on the lake. But this person was careful, calculated, and desperate to keep the ledger hidden. The shadow moved closer, stepping into the lantern's glow. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat as she realized that tonight, one wrong move could mean the difference between exposing the truth and becoming the next whisper on Willow Creek. "Step carefully, detective," the shadow warned. "Or the lake will claim more than just secrets." The shadows of Willow Creek converge as Detective Hart faces the figure behind Ames' death. Every word, every move could tip the balance. Tonight, truth and danger collide in the old boathouse. Eleanor Hart's revolver was steady in her hand, her eyes locked on the figure emerging from the shadows. The tall, gloved form stopped just a few feet away, the mist curling around it like a cloak. "Who are you?" Eleanor demanded. "Why Ames? Why threaten him?" The shadow's lips curved faintly. "I am someone who ensures Willow Creek's past remains hidden." Ames, he was curious, reckless even. "And curiosity in my line of work has consequences." Cole stepped forward. "Detective, be careful. This person isn't bluffing." Eleanor's gaze never wavered. Ames left a journal, a ledger, clues for someone to follow. "That means he trusted we could handle the truth. And we will, but you'll answer for your part in his death." The shadow laughed softly. "Ah, the arrogance of the determined. You think you can step into my town, into my secrets, and walk away unscathed? This ledger, these documents, they are my shield." Drayden's voice trembled, but Ames was only trying to protect the town. He didn't want harm. "You killed him to protect, what exactly?" The shadow's eyes flickered with annoyance. "Protection is a matter of perspective, young man." Ames knew too much. "He would have destroyed lives if I let him speak. I chose the lesser evil." Eleanor's mind raced. The ledger, the journal, the cryptic notes. Ames had left breadcrumbs, guiding them toward the truth while shielding them from the danger. But the shadow's arrogance revealed a weakness, overconfidence. "Lies and threats won't save you," Eleanor said slowly. "Ames documented everything, every transaction, every threat, every shadow you hid behind. We have proof." The figure stiffened. "Proof is meaningless if it never reaches the right hands." "Then you've underestimated us," Eleanor replied. "We're not alone. Willow Creek may be quiet, but it remembers, and it listens." Ames made sure of that. The shadow's hand twitched toward something at the belt. A small pistol, perhaps, or a tool of intimidation. Eleanor's heart pounded. One wrong move could end it all. Cole whispered, "Detective, we need to act, now." Eleanor nodded imperceptibly. She stepped forward, voice calm but commanding. "Step back from the ledgers. Leave the boathouse. No one else needs to get hurt tonight." The shadow hesitated, weighing options, the tension thick enough to choke. In that moment, Eleanor noticed a glint near the back wall, a secondary exit, barely visible behind a stack of old oars. "Your time is up," Eleanor continued. "Walk away, and no one else gets hurt. Stay, and the consequences are on you." The figure's lips tightened, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed suspended. Then, with a swift motion, the shadow bolted toward the hidden exit. Eleanor moved quickly, but Cole and Drayden caught a glimpse of a familiar figure disappearing into the fog. The boathouse was quiet once more. Eleanor lowered her revolver, exhaling. The ledger lay safely on the table, evidence intact. Ames' journal still held its secrets, and their pursuer had vanished, for now. Outside, the fog swirled, hiding footsteps that faded into the night. Eleanor knew that while the immediate danger had passed, the shadow of Willow Creek's secrets was far from gone. "Someone's still out there," she whispered. "And the final pieces of this puzzle aren't yet in place." After nights of shadows and whispered threats, Detective Hart edges closer to the heart of Willow Creek's mystery. The ledger, the journal, and the foggy lake all point to a truth someone wanted buried forever. The morning sun crept slowly over Willow Creek, dispersing some of the thick fog but leaving the chill of the previous night lingering in the air. Eleanor Hart returned to the Willow Inn, the ledger and journal secured in her bag. Samuel Drayden and Harris Cole followed closely, each step deliberate, as though aware that even now, unseen eyes might track their movements. "We can't let the shadow get away," Eleanor said, her voice quiet but firm. "We need to connect the ledger to the town's current players, Identify who benefited, who feared exposure, and who Ames believed could be trusted. Cole nodded. I've been reviewing Ames' notes. There are repeated mentions of Lydia Brandt, the ledger's entries, and a mysterious entity, the Shadow. The ledger lists payments, favors, and land deals, but the Shadow orchestrated the timing of Ames' discoveries. Whoever they are, they've been controlling the town from behind the curtain. Eleanor opened the journal again. One passage stood out. Trust is fragile. Eyes see what they want, and those who hide do so in plain sight. The lake keeps the past, but the present is mine to shape. She frowned. The handwriting conveyed urgency, almost desperation. Ames had known the Shadow's reach was vast, yet he tried to leave breadcrumbs: the journal, the ledger, the boathouse. Someone in town had pulled the strings, and it was time to uncover them. Drayden's voice broke her thoughts. Detective, the ledger shows repeated transactions with a business registered under the name of the Whitmore estate. It's an old family name, tied to Willow Creek's history. Eleanor's pulse quickened. The Whitmores were respected, but power often hides a darker side. Then we pay them a visit. Carefully, we confront the ledger's origins and see what emerges. Arriving at the Whitmore residence, Eleanor noticed the stillness. The house was large, Victorian, with windows reflecting the morning light, betraying nothing of the secrets inside. They knocked, and the door opened to reveal Mrs. Whitmore, elegant yet cautious, as if she sensed the tension Eleanor carried. Detective Hart, may I help you? Eleanor held the journal slightly forward. Mrs. Whitmore, I believe someone in your household may be tied to Gregory Ames' death, or at least to the circumstances surrounding it. We'd like to ask a few questions about the ledger and recent transactions. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes widened slightly, but she composed herself. Come in. I suppose it's time someone addressed these matters. Gregory, he uncovered things that should have remained hidden. I feared exposure, but I never intended harm. Eleanor listened carefully as Mrs. Whitmore explained. The Shadow, it turned out, was Lydia Brandt herself, operating through the Whitmore estate, leveraging old debts and secret dealings to maintain control of the town. Ames had been curious, persistent, and brave, but not cautious enough. Finally, Eleanor's gaze swept the room. So Lydia Brandt is the Shadow. She manipulated events, followed Ames, and threatened anyone close to the ledger. And now we have proof. Mrs. Whitmore nodded. Yes. It was meant to protect the town's legacy, but Gregory's integrity could not be silenced. Eleanor realized one truth above all. Justice wasn't just about exposing the Shadow. It was about understanding the cost of secrets, and ensuring that those who played with lives from behind the curtain would be held accountable. As the morning sun fully lit the Whitmore estate, Eleanor whispered to herself, tomorrow, we end this. The secrets of Willow Creek are about to surface. Detective Hart prepares to confront the Shadow behind Ames' death, and the town will finally see the cost of buried truths. Eleanor Hart stood at the edge of the Whitmore estate's sprawling garden, the morning sun warm but the tension heavy in the air. Samuel Drayden and Harris Cole flanked her, each carrying pieces of evidence, the ledger, the journal, and copies of correspondence Ames had left behind. We confront her today, Eleanor said quietly. No theatrics, no surprises, just truth. And if she resists, the law will follow. They entered the Whitmore house. Lydia Brandt sat in the drawing room, poised, elegant, but her sharp eyes flicked to the journal Eleanor carried. Detective Hart, she said smoothly. I wondered when you'd arrive. I hoped it would be sooner, though I feared your persistence. Eleanor set the journal on the table. Your games are over, Lydia. Gregory Ames left enough behind to show the town who orchestrated threats, manipulated secrets, and silenced him. The ledger proves it. Lydia leaned back, her smile thin. Do you understand what you've done by following his breadcrumbs? You've stirred ghosts that should have stayed buried. This town runs on silence. I merely maintained order. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Order built on fear isn't protection. It's tyranny. You're done. Cole and Drayden placed the ledger and evidence in front of Lydia. The documents traced every shady transaction, every anonymous threat, and even hinted at her attempts to intimidate the townsfolk. Lydia's calm demeanor faltered. This is incomplete. You don't understand the stakes? Eleanor leaned forward. I understand enough. Gregory Ames documented your misdeeds. The ledger, the journal, even the hidden boathouse, all proof. The town deserves to know the truth. You have no more power here. There was a silence, broken only by the faint ticking of a clock. Lydia realized her careful plans, her manipulations, and her intimidation had all been meticulously recorded. Ames' foresight had trapped her without a word spoken to the authorities yet. Finally, she stood, her shoulders stiff, her composure cracking. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Perhaps," Eleanor replied, "but I'll regret more if I let fear rule Willow Creek." The law arrived shortly thereafter. Officers took Lydia into custody, careful to keep the operation discreet. As the door closed behind her, Eleanor felt a strange mixture of relief and solemnity. Ames' sacrifice, his meticulous planning, and his courage had finally brought justice. Outside, the lake shimmered under the morning sun, peaceful and silent. The boathouse, once a hiding place of secrets and shadows, now stood empty, a monument to what had been uncovered and a reminder that even the quietest towns hold stories worth telling. Drayton glanced at Eleanor. "Do you think the town will recover?" Eleanor smiled faintly, eyes on the water. "They will. Secrets have a way of coming to light. Some wounds take time to heal, but truth gives people a chance. Willow Creek can move forward." Cole added quietly, "And Ames?" Eleanor's voice softened. "He's gone, but his legacy is here. He ensured justice was done without revenge, without chaos. He trusted us, and we honored that trust. That's what matters." The fog lifted finally, sunlight illuminating the small town streets. Eleanor took a deep breath, letting the calm settle over her. The shadows had passed, the ledger and journal safely in the right hands, and the town could finally breathe. As Eleanor Hart walked back toward the inn, she glanced at the lake one last time. Quiet, reflective, eternal. Willow Creek had its secrets, but now it had truth, and that, she knew, was worth more than any shadow that ever loomed over it. The story of Gregory Ames, the ledger, and the shadow would live on in whispered tales, not as fear, but as a testament to courage, perseverance, and justice.